In this video, we will look at 5 different ways to search for an item in an array. And we will also discuss what are the best practices to use them. So without wasting any time, let's get started. Before we write JavaScript code, let's discuss the theory first. So I have created a table here and we will fill this table with all the information. And once this table is filled, then we will jump to coding. So I will get a pen here and the first column here is the method. Which method we can use on array. So I will get a thick pen. Okay, so the first method is includes, includes. The second method that we can use is sum, S-O-M-E. The third method is find, F-I-N-D, find. Fourth is filter, F-I-L-T-E-R, filter. And the fifth one is findIndex. So we can use these 5 inbuilt methods on an array object to search for an item. Now let's see where, in which ECMAScript version it was introduced. So here I will write it down, ECMAScript version, and I will choose a different pen here. So if you don't know about ECMAScript, you can watch my video on it, but just to give you some context, here is a quick explanation of it. There is an organization named ECMA International, and it releases the specification for general purpose scripting language like JavaScript. And instead of using JavaScript specification, it uses the term ECMAScript specifications. So that's where the term ECMAScript comes from. So includes was introduced in ES7, ECMAScript 7. It is also known as ECMAScript 2016. Sum was introduced in ECMAScript 3. Find was introduced in ECMAScript 6 or ECMAScript 2015. Filter was introduced in ECMAScript 5 and findIndex was introduced in ECMAScript 6 or ECMAScript 2015. Now, ECMAScript 3 was released in 1999, so I will write it down the year here, 1999, and ECMAScript 5 was released in 2009. So if we just look this column, sum is the pretty oldest method that we have been using with JavaScript. So now we know the ECMAScript versions here. Let's write it down the input column. So this includes method accepts an input. So the input is a particular value. So we need to provide a value here. I will write it down. I will select a different color first. Okay, so this is value. Sum accepts a function, so we need to provide a function in the input, and function is the input to this find, and function is for filter, and then function is for findIndex. So except for includes, we need to provide function as an input argument to all these 4 methods. And in this function, we write the logic to check for the item that we are looking for. And if the condition is satisfied, we return true, and if the condition is not satisfied, we return false. So basically, in this function, we write the logic. And when we write the JavaScript code, we will understand these functions in detail. So just to give you a brief overview, except for includes all these methods except a function. Now let's write it down the output. I should select a different color. Okay, so in output. So the output of this includes function is a Boolean. The output of this sum is Boolean. The output of find is an object. The output of filter is an array. And the output of findIndex is a number. You can say output or return type. I have returned output, it should be return type. So the return type of these methods are Boolean, and then for find it's an object, for filter it's an array, for findIndex it's a number which returns the actual index. Let's see two more columns here. So if the value is found, so I will write it down here, found, F-O-U-N-D, or if the value or item is not found, let's see what this methods will return. So includes will return true, sum will return true. If the value is not found, it will return false. Sum will also return false because the return type is Boolean. Find would return the object or the value. So this would return the value, the actual value that we are looking for. And if the value is not found, it would return undefined. For filter, you will get an array. And if the value is not found, you would still get an array, but the size of the array would be 0. Here the size of our array would be the items that we are looking for. findIndex would return the index, and if the value or the item is not found, it would return -1. So this is the chart that you can refer, and here you can see that if you are only interested in knowing whether the item exists in an array or not, then we should use these two methods, includes or sum. We will understand the difference when we write the code, but the best practice is if you're just looking to check whether the item exists in an array or not, and you're not really bothered about retrieving the item from that array, then go for these two methods. Find would return the actual object or value. So let's say if we have an array of 2, 2, 3, 4, this find would return the first item found. So if we are looking for the value of 2, it would return this. It would not process your array till the end. It will only process your array till you find this value. And same is with sum. So as soon as sum encounters this 2, it would return the value. It would not process the entire, it would return true, and it would not process this entire array. Filter would return all the values. So if we are looking for true, if we are looking for 2, filtered would return an array of 2 and 2, and it would process your array till the end. So for your first item in the array, this function will be invoked. For your second item in the array, this function will be invoked. For your third item in the array, this function will be invoked. And your fourth item in the array, this function will be invoked. And through that, it will get an array of 2 and 2. For find, it will process the first item in an array, and if the value is found, it would just return the value. It would not process 2, 3, and 4. And same is with sum. findIndex would return the index. So if we are looking for the value of 2, the first item is at 0th index, so it would return 0. This would return 0. And it would not process the rest of the items in the array. So again, back to the best practices. These two we have already discussed. Find, if you're only looking to get the first item, the first matched item, then you should use find. If you're looking to get all the items, then use filter. And if you're not sure whether you want to get the value or you just want to check, so if you are really troubled between using include, sum, and find, you should go with findIndex, because it will give you the index, and later on, if you need to fetch the actual value from it, you can fetch by getting the item at that particular index. So if you do 0 at array, it would return 2. So this would return the index, and you can use this index to fetch the actual value later on if needed to be. Now that we know the basics, let's write some code and see how it behaves. And it should match whatever we have written here. To write the code, I will go to playcode.io, and it is an online playground to test the JavaScript code. And you can see the output of your JavaScript code as you type in. So I will close out these two windows, we don't need them, and I will just keep these two. So let's create an array. So const array is 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is a pretty simple array, and we can use includes to check. So 2 and const output, and then console.log output. So this returns true because the value of 2 exists in this array. What if I give 6? Then it should return false. So it returned false here. So includes is a pretty simple way to check for a value in an array. But let's create one more array here. So const JSON array. Then in this JSON array, let's create name, and then name is Sam, and Sam lives in Chicago. So we have this JSON object, and then I will create 4 here, 4 JSON objects. Let's say the next name is Ravi, he lives in Mumbai, and third one is Jessica, she lives in London. Fourth one is Wasim, he lives in Dubai. And we need one more JSON object so that we can have two people living in London. So let's say Mike lives in London. Now, if we want to check whether we have any person in this array who lives in London, can you use includes? No, because we have to write some logic to check for that particular person. So for that, we use sum. So this sum, we would pass on a function, and then the first argument to this function is the value. The second argument is the index, and these are optional. And the third item is the actual array itself. So these are, and then function search and return value dot lives in equal to London. Then console.log output, and I have to change this to JSON array, and this would return true. So if you want to provide a function to check for a particular value, then use sum, and this returns true. If I say, let's say LA, it would return false. And let's see how many times it is processing this sum. So if I put console.log and the value, we can see here that it will process the first item in the array. The condition is not satisfied, it will move on to the next item. The condition is not satisfied, it will move on to the third item. And the condition is satisfied, so it will not process Wasim and Mike, the fourth and fifth item in the array. So as soon as the value or the condition is matched, sum returns true. Now let's see find. Now again, find would only process the first three items, because as soon as it finds the third item, it would return the actual object. So it should return this actual object. So if I do find and let's put value here, value output. So as you can see here, it only processed till the third item, and it actually returned the first matched item. So it only returned the first matched item. Now let's do findIndex. findIndex. And you can provide the same function to all these methods. So here it returned a value of 2, because this is at 0th index, this is at first index, and this is at second index. So this returned the index, and if we want to fetch the value, we can use JSON array and then output, and it should return the same value. So if you're not really sure whether you really need the value or not, go with findIndex. Okay, now the last method left is filter. So if I do filter, it would return an array. So this should return an array of all the matched items. And as you can see here, it processed all the elements. So it processed till the end. Let me clean out this console.log so that we can see the actual value. And here you can see that it returned an array, and this array has two items, Jessica and Mike. So it returned all the matched item in the array. Let's talk about performance now. So if we have an array of, let's say, 200 numbers, so const array equal to, let's say this is a huge array of, let's say 150 numbers, and let's say the item at 5th index is 2. Then you have rest of the item 3, 1, 7, 1, and then at the first 4 indexes we have 0, 0, 0, 0. And we want to look for this 5th item, like the value of 2 in this array. So if we use includes, it will return true, and it will only check the value till this 5th index. So your loop will be processed 5 plus 1 times, so 6 times. If we use sum and we provide a function, it would also return true, and it would process the loop 6 times. So it would check for the value of 0, item 1, then 2, and then 3, 4, and then 5th. So 5 plus 1 is 6 times. If we go with find, it will return 2, and it will process the loop again 6 times. If we are using filter, it will process till the end of the array. So it will process, it will give you an array, and let's say we have this value 2 only once in this array, so this would return an array of size 1, and it would have 2, and this would process the loop 150 times. findIndex would return 5 because this is the index, and it would process it 6 times. So as you can see here, if you are doing filter and 0th index to get the value, this is a very inefficient design. You should not use this at all unless you're looking to fetch all the items. And this is what I wanted to show you through this exercise. So here is the summary of it. I hope that through this video you have got the understanding of these 5 inbuilt methods, and you can now use them efficiently in your projects.